So, I think not only are progress reports to help us understand how much progress your child has made on their IEP goals, I think progress reports are also helpful for teachers for them to reflect and see if the instructional strategies they've been using for the past 9 weeks or so have they been working. So we are going to talk about progress reports today, and not just in light of what does your child's progress report say about their advancement on their IEP goals, but we're also going to look at how it can help us understand what works and what doesn't work. So if you are interested, stay tuned because So we're going to be talking about advocating for more meaningful progress reports. And recently I had a post on my the Art of Advocacy Facebook page, the page you're watching right now, and you might have responded. I said, what's missing from your child's progress report? And you know the number one answer, drum roll, data or data. That is the common missing link in most progress reports. And we are in the month of October. Usually this means you're going to be getting your child's first progress report soon. Put in the comments, has anybody already received any progress reports from school? Let us know in the comments. So what I thought I would do is share. I wrote this, I'm calling it an eGuide. It says how to advocate for meaningful progress reports. And I thought what we would do, instead of doing a PowerPoint, we're going to try something new. And I'm going to show you the PDF that I wrote, and also remind me at the end to give you the link for it. So let's go over here to see the PDF that I wrote for you, how to advocate for meaningful progress reports. Now, on the cover, I wanted us as parents, but I also want teachers to be thinking about, are our instructional strategies working? The other thing I want us to think about is, do we build on students' strengths? And I can actually highlight these. Because so many times I think, what we find is we're so focused on what our child can't do and what their needs are and how the IEP is going to meet their needs. And sometimes when kids are not making progress on their goals, it might be because we're not embedding enough of their strengths and interests into the IEP goals. However, that is another story for another day. So anyway, while we're talking about progress reports, I want you to keep in mind strengths, and I want you to keep in mind instructional strategies. So let's go. This is our introduction. And the first part that I want to make sure that we understand is, what does IDEA say about progress reports? And newsflash, you might be a little disappointed. There's not a lot of specificity here. But if we look at IDEA, it says it has to have a description. Your child's IEP has to have a description of how the progress toward meeting the goals will be measured. So think about maybe other progress reports that you've gotten, and what did they use for measurement? Sometimes they use work samples. There should be some hard data being collected. Sometimes it's observation notes, which we know can be kind of judgmental. But in your child's IEP, they should list what they're going to use to measure each IEP goal. And it might be different depending on the goals, right? So, but that's one thing that IDEA requires. Now, the next thing is your IEP, your child's IEP has to say when periodic reports on your child's progress will be provided. Now, the trick here is these two red words, such as. So the requirement is when you got to know when these reports are going to come. And they give some examples, such as through the use of quarterly or other periodic reports. Here's another example, concurrent with the issue of report cards. Well, that's only one, or I guess a couple, right? Suggested times when progress reports have to go out. However, 99% of the IEPs I see as an advocate have that the progress report will go home at the same time the report card goes home. And I think districts just kind of glopped onto that and thought, oh, this is what we have to do. However, this is not written in stone and the federal law. So the other thing that we have to remember is, what do our state regs say? Because knowing IDEA is important, but we also have to understand the state regulations. Now, sometimes states will just use whatever IDEA says, but your state might have additional requirements or specific regulations. So I'm, again, not aware of a state that gives, like a specific timeline. However, you might be living in a state and the state regs for special ed says every month you have to receive a progress report. And if you don't know that's in your state regs and you're not getting them every month, you don't know to speak up and ask for something different. So you need to make sure that you understand what your state regulations say. So let's go past this. And in order to get a progress report, the staff has to be doing progress monitoring. And this, again, like I said, is going to be an emphasis in this show, is that progress monitoring is actually a way to evaluate the effectiveness of instructional strategies. And of course, what we think about the most is measuring progress on IEP goals. Now, the frequency, sometimes I've seen people say that it's going to be measured monthly. I really prefer IEP goals on a general basis to be measured either every week or every other week. Sometimes you're going to get pushback if you're asking people to do it every week, and it's like, I don't want to be testing, I want to be teaching. However, depending on how the IEP goal is written, it's not like you have to go to this separate setting, sit down and, do this long assessment. According to each goal, right, it should just take a few minutes. You could use a work sample that the child did that day, and that's how you see how many addition problems they got right. But I think every other week is really helpful, because when you look at, do we want to change instructional strategies, typically you want at least 6 different data points before you say, like, I'm not sure this is really being effective. So if you wait and only collect progress monitoring data once a month, then really, to have 6 data points, you'd have to wait 6 months. And nobody wants to wait 6 months to see whether or not their child's making progress, or if the methods that they're using to teach your child are working or not. So my recommendation is at least every other week. And the other tip is, if you say biweekly, it can mean every other week, or it can be twice a week. So define it. And sometimes progress monitoring is evaluating individual or the whole class. But for IEPs, we're looking at individuals, right? Now, these are the benefits of doing progress monitoring. And I think we want to be familiar with what the benefits are, because that's part of the way that we might be able to persuade staff to give us more meaningful progress reports with data and information that's really helpful. So when we're looking at asking, maybe for more frequent progress reports and not waiting until the quarterly report card comes out, again, you might get some pushback. And we'll talk about that in a little bit when we talk about specific advocacy strategies. But if we look here, as far as the benefits of progress monitoring, is that you can make decisions and change the instructional plans more frequently. And it's just a really good way to have more communication between the school and home. And students achieve more when teachers develop stronger instructional strategies, and kids will be receiving more appropriate instruction. So those are some of the benefits of doing the progress monitoring. Now, what I wrote here, and just to remind you, if you just hopped on with us, say hi, ask any questions you have. And what I'm showing you here is a PDF that I wrote, and I need somebody in the comments to remind me at the end to give you the link for it. So we're kind of walking through some of the pages here, but you can get your own copy. So these are 10 different questions that you could be asking at IEP meetings. So let's go back up here. We'll just highlight a couple of them here. Here's a question you could ask is, what will the staff use to monitor my child's progress? So again, are they talking about data? Are they talking about, quantitative data, or are they talking about observations, which is qualitative data? And qualitative data can still be good. Here's that frequency. How often is progress monitoring going to happen? And here's how frequently we'll receive information. So yeah, just look through these. Let's see. And always a good question is, what can we do at home to support, right? So you can when you get your copy, you can take a look at all that. The other thing I thought that could be helpful for you is what I look as far as a meaningful progress report. And your definition of a meaningful progress report is going to be unique to you and your child. So that's why we want to individualize these. And you have to decide what you want to ask for. I'm going to take a cough drop. So let's look at some possibilities of what would be included on a meaningful progress report. And what I'd like you to do is, take a progress report from last year, or if you've already got one, and see how many of these elements are included in the progress report that you currently are getting. So does it really help you know what's been learned since the last progress report? So if the last progress report was in May, you should be knowing, if there was still school in June and up until October, what the progress was. You want to have objective data. I like seeing data graphed. However, the caution is with data. I know when I worked at Peak Parent Center in Colorado, that's the parent training center for Colorado, one of the mantras that we would say to parents is ask for the data, say, show me the data. And so parents would go to IEP meetings and they would say, show me the data. And the special ed teacher would pull out this, usually a line graph with dotted lines and colored lines. And the parent would go, okay. And then they would call us back and say, I asked, show me the data. And they did. And I had no idea what it meant. So just showing you the data or reporting the data doesn't mean it's actually meaningful data until we really understand it and really look at it. And that's the part that can be tricky, right? Is like, I mean, we didn't have, any parenting classes before our kids were born, chances. We don't have, probably any courses that we've taken in evaluations and assessments. So as a parent, it's like, well, that's great. They showed me the data, but like, what does that mean? So, and again, I mean, we could do, if people are interested, like a whole another workshop on understanding data. However, you need to, I don't know, have the courage, feel confident enough to ask questions, to say, well, this is great. It looks impressive. Now, can you explain it to me? And see, and if they explain it and it still doesn't make sense, say, I'm really trying to understand this. So, and then you could say, like, are you saying that he is pretty much at a place where he's not making any progress at all? Or are you saying he's really excelled? Whatever the situation is. So ask questions. And yes, if you have, another friend with you or somebody at the IEP meeting, maybe they have some expertise in understanding data. But yeah, you want the data, but then you have to know what to do with the data, right? So I think you need at least two different types of evidence. I really love seeing work samples. To me, that gives me so much more understanding of what the child's doing. So we want some kind of objective data. Observation logs, I know observations are kind of poo-pooed, but I think you can also get some good information. I don't want it all to be based on observation log, but you could use audio recordings, like maybe the speech therapist would do some audio portfolio examples. The other thing I was going to tell you is, I think about about all these different IEP meetings and kind of the pushback I hear from staff. And so sometimes staff is like, well, we do his math on a whiteboard. I can't, send home the whiteboard. We do a problem, erase it, do another problem. And so what, you guys are awful quiet. Say hi in the comments. What do you think would be a workaround if you hear, we only use whiteboards, I can't send home the whiteboard with his work on it. I'm going to get a sip of water. So tell me, what do you think could be a workaround? One of the suggestions that I've had, yes, 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 I love it, I love it, I love it. Carmen, yes, from Oklahoma says, take a photo. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And you think of, you know, I mean, how handy cell phones are and how easy it is to take a quick photo and send that to the parent. Now, the question is, you have to make sure some schools have different rules and policy about, texting with a parent, and can it only be the special ed teacher, all that. So you'd have to look at that too. But yeah, photos of a work sample, that would be a great way to do it. And I think it's important to have some kind of written summary, like, not just put the graph there and like impress you with their line graph, but it's like, okay, now actually give me a summary here. I would love to see this. I don't see this. Whether or not they're suggesting or recommending that we change instructional strategies. I don't think teachers actually think of progress reports as helping them reflect on their strategies. The other thing is, maybe your child has met a goal and now it's time to write a new ambitious goal. What I have seen a lot of times is a child on the progress report, it will say goal met. And it's like, yay, we love to celebrate that. And then it's like, okay, when are we going to have a meeting and talk about the new goal? And people are like, oh, well, the annual review isn't until January. And it's like, no, we don't have to like wait for an annual review to write a new goal when your child has mastered one before the IEP is up for review. So that's the other thing to keep in mind. Um, a lot of people will include whether or not your child's on target to meet the IEP goal by the date. I like to think that progress reports would be understandable to everyone on the team. We don't want different people having different interpretations. We want to be really clear on what the data is showing us and such. So let's look at some advocacy steps. So if your progress report isn't telling you the full story, one thing that you can do is to request more detailed data. And, the thing to look at is if the goal is written, like they're going to, make it, I don't know, read so many words per minute with 90% accuracy, then the progress report should be saying, now they're reading this many words per minute, and this is their percentage of accuracy. So instead of just saying progress made, it's like, well, that doesn't tell me much, So whatever measurement they use in the IEP goal is the measurement that you want them to use when they're reporting their progress. So if it's, to do 10 two-digit addition problems with regrouping with 85% accuracy, then the progress on that goal should say how many problems, what was the accuracy, not just goal will be met, So that's another little insight tip for you. And if you're not getting the full story, ask for another meeting, right? The other thing that you can do is to request more frequent monitoring updates, like every 4 to 6 weeks. The important thing is that you want to get all of this written in your IEP. And as we said before, you want to make sure it includes multiple types of evidence. And the summary should explain it so you really understand where your child is. And you also have an indication of how things are working with the curriculum and the strategies that the staff is using. So that was some advocacy steps that you can take when you're really not getting meaningful progress reports. But how about if you are getting fairly good progress reports as far as meaningful, however, your child's like hardly making any progress according to what they have there on the progress report. So what do you do when you see your child's not making much progress? Anybody have a tip for us? Let's move over here. So if your child is only showing minimal or no progress, that's a red flag. And another part of IDEA that we don't often talk about is that the IEP team must review the IEP periodically, but not less than annually, to determine whether the goals are being achieved. And revise the IEP as appropriate to address any lack of expected progress towards the annual goals. And that's a big and, in the general ed curriculum, that child's anticipated needs or other matters. So I wanted to put this exact wording in the PDF, and I'm going to keep reminding myself I'm going to give you the link for the PDF at the end here. I wanted to put that exact wording in, and I'm not an attorney and I can't give you legal advice. However, I think the language is pretty clear, and you as a parent can understand that if you're getting a progress report and it's not showing very much progress, there's this regulation in IDEA that talks about the IEP team has an obligation to revise that IEP. And of course, it might mean different things, and we'll talk about what that might look like. So I think it's important for parents to know that that's part of the federal law. And again, you want to go back and check what your state regulations say about that. So let's continue on. So if you are seeing not much progress, that's an important red flag to call for a meeting to evaluate the instructional strategies. Are they evidence-based? Do they align with your child's needs and strengths? Because if they're not making progress, it might not be your child's fault. It might be because what they're using for curriculum or instruction isn't a good match for your child. You also will want to revisit the goals. So if they didn't make much progress, chances are that your IEP goals might need some tweaking. So look at it. Do you need goals that are more strength-based? Do you need goals that are more ambitious? Maybe your child's bored with what he's being asked to do all the time. Or do we need to break that goal down into short-term objectives? If your child's not making good progress, maybe another avenue is to look at additional supports. Maybe there's a need for assistive technology, and that would help your child make more progress. And then also, we got to make sure that that is being collected frequently enough so we can identify problems early instead of waiting months and months. And if everybody's puzzled and you're not quite sure that the school's evaluation was appropriate or told you enough, you can also request the independent education evaluation, set new benchmarks. I like short-term objectives for that. Now, the other thing that we're not going to go to as much here, but also you'll have it in your own PDF, is steps that the staff really needs to be taking. So you can look those over at your leisure. And if this is resonating with you, give me a comment because otherwise it's just me talking, and I would rather have you asking questions and talking. So if you have a question, a comment about what we've been going over here, or you have a question or comment about your child's own progress report, type it in the box and we'll chat about it. Okay? Okie dokie. So what we don't want, I have to include a Michael Giangreco cartoon. So it says, what are you doing with that student data? And the response is, when I started, it was raw data. It's still not done. And the caption says, student data is extremely valuable, but not if it's half baked. So, Michael Giangreco, we love your cartoons. The other thing I included with in your PDF was I've developed several different custom chat GPTs. I don't know. Raise your hand. Give me a yes in the comments if you use AI. I have a lot of workshops about using artificial intelligence to help you in your advocacy. So what I thought would be fun was one of the GPTs that I've developed for parents is the email one. And I put specific information in the background of, hey, Barb. Yes, I know Barb uses AI. Excuse me. I put specific information for kind of the framework of what a good email would entail, and also asking other kind of questions to get your specific case. So for this, I thought it would be fun. I used my custom email GPT, and I asked it to write an email because you are requesting an IEP meeting to discuss the incomplete progress report that you got. So I'll show you this now. So this is a custom GPT, and the purpose is to help ensure your voice is heard and sparks real change. So this is an example that I got recently. So ChatGPT, when you use this email one, gives you the subject line. So request for IEP meeting to discuss incomplete progress reports. And then it depends. This might be to the principal. It might be to the special ed teacher. And I'll just quickly read this. It says, I would like to start by acknowledging the efforts made by the school to support my child's education. However, I am reaching out to request an IEP meeting as soon as possible to discuss my concerns regarding my child's recent progress report. Unfortunately, the progress report does not include essential information such as data, work samples, or specific details on how my child is progressing toward their IEP goals. Without this information, it is challenging to determine if the instructional strategies in place are effective or if any adjustments need to be made. I feel it's important for us to have clear, meaningful updates that provide a detailed view of my child's progress, including whether they are meeting their goals and how well the current approaches are working. See, I like how we keep talking about it's not just meeting goals, but it's also talking about what instructional strategies we're using. I am requesting that future reports include these details to ensure we can make informed decisions about my child's education plan. Could we please schedule a meeting by, and you want to be specific and give a date? I believe a discussion will help clarify these concerns and ensure my child receives the appropriate is always a good word to put in emails. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I look forward to collaborating on how we can best meet my child's needs. So, and the note down here is that this custom GPT that I developed is for members only and our Connecting for Change group. So if you want more information, you can check it out there. So that I wanted to just show you the power of using artificial intelligence, and especially when you use custom GPTs that are made just for you as a parent. Now, the next one let's see, I want to show you is from a second custom GPT, and I call it my Negotiate GPT. And this is to help boost your persuasive skills. And a really fun part of the GPT is when you can actually practice role playing for your meeting. Now, we're not going to do that today because that takes more time. However, these are some things. And what I did is I asked the Negotiate GPT, I said, given an example of a parent is asking for more specific data to be collected, the staff is resistant to collecting it, to sharing it. So I asked the Negotiate GPT, what could be some responses, some questions that parents could ask if they're in that situation. So we're not going to read all of this, but I want to just give you a flavor. So one of the main points that you want to always make is talking about how data collection is going to help us make sure that we're using effective instruction. You want to also make the point that when we collect data, it really helps us individualize, personalize that instruction. And so chances are your child's going to be more successful. It's also good because when we collect the data, have more conversations between school and home, we're promoting that collaboration. There's some other points in here too about research. This is because I put in things from Chris Voss and what he talks about as far as for negotiation. So you will also get those tips. And we are at the end of the PDF. So let me know what you think. And the link. Okay, so as I said, you can get your own PDF. So let me show you the link. So you need to put https://iep.today progress reports. And like almost instantly, you'll once you sign up for it, you will get it in your email box. So look for that. And do we have any other questions or comments? If you're watching on the replay, make sure that you comment also, because I can come back and answer any questions. Carmen, thank you. She says our school went from providing progress reports every 6 weeks to every 9 weeks. Yeah. And that's the thing. And so my bet is Carmen, did they also switch report cards going home every 6 weeks, and now report cards go home every 9 weeks? I wonder if it's connected with report cards, because what you want to do is, one, you could ask, like, is this a district decision that we're changing the frequency of progress reports? Um, or is this a school building decision that this is how it's going to be done? And if they say, yes, it's a district policy now, then you want to follow up with, I'd love to understand this better. Please provide a copy of the district policy. And sometimes it's like, oh, there really isn't a policy. I guess it's just something we've always done. So, however, for your child, because the IEP is individualized, you can talk with the members of the IEP team from the school at a meeting and talk about how beneficial it would be if you got more frequent progress reports. So one of the advocacy tips is that if you get pushback and people are like, no, our teachers are busy, we can't do more frequent progress reports. One of the things that I found as a good workaround is to say, every month, we would like the school to copy the data that's been collected for the progress monitoring, the work samples that my child's done, around this IEP goal. So that way, at least every month, you're getting work samples where you can really tell a lot. And you can also keep track of the raw data that they're collecting. So those could be a couple things. But yeah, I would ask Carmen if it's a policy, if it's a practice, and what information they use to make that decision. And then if you feel like waiting 9 weeks to get a progress report is not going to be appropriate for your child, then request that you get it more frequently. Yes, another data question. So what to do if the data report reads like a copy paste of the IEP? Yeah, so then I really feel like you just have to call things out when you see it. So, and you want to put your concerns in writing, so you could, once you get the progress report, you could write an email back. And if it's to the special ed teacher, or if it's to the SLP around the language goal, whatever, address it to the person in charge kind of that goal and say, I'm confused. This looks like exactly what the IEP says, and it really isn't telling me the progress that he's made in the past, 4 weeks or whatever. And so ask a question in writing, and then also at the end, it's good to put, please respond by, whatever, the end of the week, give them some kind of a deadline when you want to hear back from them. And then if you don't hear back from them, then you send a friendly reminder. And, so yeah. And if it's, the thing is, if it's something that, is occurring a lot, then you really want to have an amendment to the IEP and to really be more specific there with the progress monitoring spot. Usually that's right under the IEP goal is where they put like what they're going to use for progress monitoring, how frequently, that kind of information. You can have them type sentences in there. And if that doesn't work because of their computer software, another spot where you can be more specific about what you want for progress reports is usually under the table or the grid where their service times are. and there's an optional statement of service delivery, and you can ask for that, the progress reports, what it's going to contain in them, how frequent you're going to get them, and have that spelled out in the IEP. So she says her progress report is about 12 pages long. Looks like the whole IEP, not written in a way laymen can understand. Yeah, and that might be the computer software that the district is using, or I don't know. I mean, that would be something that you would want to look at, and to say, you know, it's sometimes it's like you have to read so much information that's kind of like a copy and paste, and then like try to find the one sentence or two that's the progress report. So yeah, again, you could see, like, is that a district or a statewide form that everybody has to use? Or is that just how the school is deciding to do it? But yeah, the biggest thing is to be able to have information that is going to be understandable, right? Hey there, Suzanne. Thank you for coming. So I hope that you have some new understandings about progress reports, and that you want to have meaningful ones that are really going to help you understand what is my child learning, and that you also want to have conversations with the school members of the IEP team to say, what does this progress information tell us about the curriculum, the instructional strategies that we're using? And of course, that could be a whole nother workshop, right? So you see, like, these are like these little micro, you know, free lives that I do will be helpful for you. However, if you want more specific help, you could join our Connecting for Change group. And that's a membership group where I go live at least 5 times a month. So we have lots of opportunity, and you're live. It's like a Zoom, like you're live with me. And so we get to actually have conversations that can be really helpful. You can get a lot more personalized advice and support that way. And we are a wonderful group of parents that are supporting and proponents of inclusive education. So again, if you want details for that, let me know. And we will be back again in a couple weeks. So happy progress reporting season. And let me know if you have any further questions. Okie dokie. So I am Charmaine Tanner, as a parent of an adult with Down syndrome, as a retired teacher, as an advocate. My mission, my purpose is to make sure that your child is safe, happy, and learning every day beside their classmates. So thank you for being here, and thank you for your advocacy that you do. Take care.